Okay, we're live, folks.
Good evening and welcome to the March 4th, 2021 meeting of the Northborough Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Becca, do you have the statement from the governor?
Yes. So pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. This meeting will be live streamed, but will have no option for public participation. To view or listen only, please visit the live YouTube link on the diversity and inclusion agenda for this evening.
Thank you, Becca. And just to get a roll call for the notes, that would be great. Miriam?
Present.
Shika?
Present.
Hamilton?
Present.
Mary?
Present.
And Becca?
Present.
And I'm Tim Kalin, and I am present. The first order of business we have tonight is just to approve the meeting, the notes from our last meeting. Mary, thank you very much for putting those together. Did anybody have anything to add or any questions about anything that was included in those? No. Okay. Can I just get a motion to approve the minutes?
I move we vote to approve the February 4th, 2021 meeting minutes of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee as presented.
And a second?
Second.
Go ahead, Chica.
I was like, I second that.
I see it coming.
So moved by Becca and second by Shika. The minutes are approved. Thank you for that. Next,
I'm sorry, could you just do a roll call vote?
oh, sorry. Apologies. Yes, roll call vote. Miriam,
Yep, aye.
Shika,
Oh, I second it, right? Or you want me to?
just
Is
say,
aye
yeah,
again?
just, yeah,
Aye, sorry.
that's all right. Hamilton,
I'm going to abstain just because I wasn't here for the last one.
thank you. Mary,
Aye.
Becca,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So they're approved unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder, Becca. I get ahead of myself sometimes. So the next item on the agenda for tonight is we have a guest speaker from or a guest from the YMCA. We were supposed to have Slater Lyell from the Y in, but he couldn't make it because of some other responsibilities at the Y that he had to take care of this evening. So joining us is Joseph Hyland from the Y. Hi, Joe. Nice. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, it's very nice to meet all of you.
So initially, the Y had reached out to me to join us at one of our meetings. So I guess so you could learn a little bit more about what we're doing, and it'd be great to learn what the Y is doing in the area in ways that we as a community can help the Y in any ways that we can.
Okay, absolutely. I mean, in kind of preparing for this discussion today, I was kind of trying to figure out like how best to actually go about categorizing everything in terms of like what we can bring to the table and what we, what we would need help in actually achieving on our own. I guess maybe it'd be useful to kind of give an overview of like what we have at our branch so that you guys can, base any decisions or anything like that off of actually what's there. So we're a nonprofit organization. We have fitness offerings. And so we have various like free weight cardio, pool stuff. There's a basketball space, all that sort of thing. But we also have child watch, child care. Child care and things like that are full day programs, and those are available on like a weekly charge basis. But we also have Child Watch that's just free for all of our members. And you can like sign up for that and then get a workout knowing that your kids are happy and safe while you're exercising, engaging with your community, all that good stuff. I think that one thing we would be able to help you guys with, at least I would hope, is actually in helping to distribute resources and contacts for people in the community. I watched the stream for the last meeting that you guys had on I think it was the 18th.
Mhm.
And I, a good portion of that was spent on making sure that the survey was as effective as possible and addressed as like diverse a range of questions and needs as could be made. And so I think that through our like social media marketing, I believe if it's needed, that we could really help to, distribute that sort of thing, compile answers, all that good stuff. And then when the time comes to actually help like implement any changes that come about as a result of that survey and its responses, we have spaces and we want to best utilize them. And so we have a couple of studios that are normally used to house group classes and things like that. But we were thinking that they might be good spaces for public trainings, events, speakers, panels, things like that. We have, all the chairs and tables and stuff that we would need. And so it's really more just a matter of coordinating when that would happen and actually, executing on that. We also have, as a result of the pandemic, there's a remote learning program that runs Monday through Friday at the Y. And so kids are coming in as part of their hybrid learning programs at their schools. And so a couple of days in the week they'll spend here, sometimes every day in the week. But our staff are helping to facilitate their education. So they're helping with their homework and making sure that they get on their Zoom classes and all that. And I was thinking that it might be a good use of that time to really, encourage education on all of the issues that we would want to be addressing as part of the committee. And so I think that would potentially be a good idea. But I guess we were also very curious what you guys would want from us. Again, we have all of these resources in this space available, and we want to have as positive an impact on the community, not just our members, as we can. And so it's more so a matter of getting a sense for like what you guys could use from us, how we could help, anything like that.
That's great. Does anybody want to follow up or ask any questions or add?
I hope I didn't ramble too much.
Oh, no, that was great.
No, I think it's awesome what you are potentially offering that we can make available as an additional resource to the community. I think training has been at the top of our list. So being able to have a facility where we can, spread out a little bit. I don't know what our offerings are here within our own town, but to be able to expand and utilize what you have there at the Y would be great. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And I think, I'm sorry, so were you gonna start to talk?
I will jump in after you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Currently at the YMCA, and I'm sorry that there's a plane flying over near me, but currently we do a great deal of stuff to help older adults as well as kids and teens. And obviously there's a lot of like fitness offerings and stuff like that for adults. But I feel like as far as addressing the needs of our community are concerned, I think we do a pretty good job. At least I hope that we do a pretty good job with older people. There's the Silver Sneakers program. I don't know if you guys are at all familiar with that, but it's a partnership with the Y and various insurance companies to make sure that people over 65 get free memberships. And a lot of people are, they like have access to it, but don't necessarily take advantage of it. And we do our absolute best to make sure that people in the community know about that. But a lot of the time it's more so just a matter of making sure people know that it is available. And again, we do a lot of stuff with kids, but I feel like it would definitely behoove both the organization and the community that we serve to do more in regards to race, sexual orientation, all that sort of thing, just because there are so many people in the community who have to, who are in these experiences, who have these lived experiences. and don't necessarily feel as though the YMCA, you know, obviously, like a lot of other organizations, are really doing everything they can. Nationally, the organization does a lot educationally, but we would very much, if possible, like to be a little bit more action-based. Obviously, education is a huge component of addressing those needs, but at the same time, you know, people have really direct needs that must be addressed, you know, with I don't know, in person, all that sort of thing. And so I don't know, I guess I feel as though, if possible, we would like to coordinate with other organizations to have, again, more like events and speakers and things like that, host like food drives, things that we already do, but maybe executed a little bit more communally.
Yeah, that all sounds great. Chika, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, from a social media perspective, trying to get the word out around the survey, what platforms do you have a social media presence on currently?
So
Is it
the
Facebook or, go ahead.
So the association as a whole is on. I don't think that there's I don't think there's a TikTok. I would say, as an organization, the YMCA is doing their absolute best to make sure that they're staying up to date with things like social media, but there's definitely at least a little bit of a lag in terms of utilizing some of the more like youth-friendly platforms.
Sure.
We use Facebook all the time. That's the primary one. Also Instagram. Nationally, YouTube is a big platform that they use to like promote classes and things like that. But if we were to be helping, you know, spread the word about the survey and things like that, I feel as though it probably would be via Facebook, email, newsletter, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and we could potentially tap into your database from an email perspective too, it sounds like, and be able to.
With that, I don't know that I can only speak for our specific branch. I don't know that the association would want to necessarily like hand the reins over in terms of the data or the information of our membership base. But we would be more than happy to help distribute anything as needed. And so if there were, so like the Survey Monkey that you guys were working on last meeting, you know, like if you needed us to like embed that in one of our newsletters and then spread that out to our entire membership base, I can't imagine that being really too big an issue at all. In fact, I think that that's something that we would really like to do if possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, one aspect of the survey is really trying to focus on Northborough residents only. Like the first question in the survey is, you know, do you live in Northborough, yes or no? And if you answer no, it just goes right to the end of the survey. So, so I'm sure that would have an impact on how the Y could, or it would be best for the Y to help us with distribution.
Yeah, I agree with that, Tim. I guess my thought was like we could even write some copy around it, just saying like almost saying it's for Northborough folks, and hopefully that will deter anyone from opening it if they're not in Northborough. But it's totally a fair point. Something that we can definitely consider. I know they support all the boroughs, so.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, we have kind of worked around that issue before. There have been surveys that organizationally we've been told to push out that were only targeting, you know, specific demographics. And so in that situation, we would just kind of preface it with whatever we were posting, like, hey, you know, attention Northborough residents, we need your help with the survey, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Did anybody have any questions for
I have a question. Thank you, Joe, for being here. I appreciate you taking the time. I don't know if you can answer this, but I'm curious what the YMCA is doing on a national level, or even you guys on like a local level around issues of diversity and inclusion. Are you aware of, I mean, I know it's everybody is talking about it. So what are you aware of things that the Y is doing specifically to try to improve issues of, you know, around diversity and inclusion?
As a national organization more so, or
Yeah,
I mean, you said to answer both. I guess I can at least try to speak to what's going on nationally. Like I said, it's more so education based. the way that it's kind of directed is that it's the YUSA, and they come up with a lot of the materials that are then distributed to local associations, who are then kind of tasked individually with making sure that things are executed as needed. There are like national events that take place. So like, every, I believe it's every May, there's like a Healthy Kids Day as a specific example of something like that. And so it's like they come up with all the materials and they say, hey, this is how we would kind of like it to be run, and then push it down so that everyone can figure it out for themselves. As far as diversity and inclusion go, again, it's more so just making sure that we have all the information that we could in terms of like data sets and resources. It's really just education based. I mean, there are like things catered specific to the areas that we have. And so like, for instance, swimming is obviously a huge part of the Y, and swim lessons in particular are one of the big things that we have going on at any given time. And not at RY specifically, but I know that for lots of YMCAs, specifically ones in bigger cities, they'll have a much bigger focus on things like water safety, just because people in those communities don't necessarily always have access to pools and things like that. And so they want to make sure that those skills are kind of distributed to as many people as possible, or at least made available to as many people as possible. Other than that, it's a lot of like food stuff. So we're constantly doing food drives, making sure that organizations in the area who need supplies and things like that are able to get those whenever they need. And so like when the pandemic hit, there were a couple that kind of went back to back of making sure that like the Northborough Food Pantry, the Westborough Food Pantry, all of those kind of were at least taken care of as much as we were able to help with. There are constant pushes to help people in the homeless community find temporary housing, things like that. I would say that's more or less it, and I'm almost embarrassed to say that that's more or less it. I would imagine there are other things going on, but they're not getting the attention that they really need in order to take off. And that's really one of the reasons why we do want to partner with you guys, is because we have these grand aspirations, but at least as of yet, it's been pretty difficult to execute to the fullest.
I mean, I definitely, I work for the town, and I definitely see that there's a potential partnership between the Y and the town. And I think about the fact that you guys have a pool and we have a senior center. And, if we could offer the ability for seniors to get to your pool and offer it through the town, it's just one idea. But, I think that I hope it's the beginning of a great relationship. I think there's a lot of potential there, and I'm really happy you're here to tell us about the Y. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I mean, we constantly in our meetings talk about how we would like to. It's really frustrating because we have all these great things going on. I mean, there are tons of like financial assistance opportunities. Like I said, there's the Silver Sneakers program for folks who are over 65. And there are lots of things like that we put in place in order to draw people in and make sure that everyone in the community knows that this is a space for them, that they can be comfortable here, that they're not going to be, excluded because of like age, race, background, anything like that. But when it comes down to it, on like a month by month basis, it doesn't really seem to make too big of an impact. People aren't necessarily coming in. And so what we would really like, I guess, if possible, is also just to kind of have help making sure that people do know about the resources that are available, because there are lots of things going on, but apparently it's not enough to just kind of spread the word ourselves.
Yeah, Mary.
So I know I keep going back to the kids in the community and kind of helping to educate them. And I think they are our future, right? They are the future leaders of our communities. And the Y does such a great job of embracing children and seniors. Do you see anything coming up over the summer with your summer camp programs where you might be able to tie in some sort of, I wouldn't say diversity training, but some sort of exposure to younger children in the camps with an emphasis on inclusion? Everything from gender equity to color of your skin. Do you see any kind of activities coming up over the summer that would kind of embrace that with the kids that you have coming in for camp?
No, absolutely. I mean, so I do know that the camp staff are working to include that sort of thing, but that's kind of exactly it. We want to do more with that. And so I feel like if a partnership resulted in, I don't know, people coming in, more resources being available to then push out to all of the kids who make use of camp and all the families whose kids are there, yeah, that'd be wonderful. We would be totally on board, ready to do whatever we could to promote that sort of thing.
And is there any conversation within your local YMCA, not YMCA, Y? It's not YMCA, right? It's, how do you guys refer to the borough? It's the borough's Y.
YMCA.
Right?
So I again, I can only speak for our individual branch. I don't want to come across as like a representative for the YMCA nationally. I do know that there is like a big push or like a de-emphasis on the MCA, and that as much as possible, it's just becoming the Y. I would rather not speak to that.
That's okay. That just kind of, when I started to say YMCA, I thought I was missing.
No, absolutely. But you are absolutely correct that generally speaking, we are trying our best to make sure that people know that we are the Y.
Yeah. So that would be one of the things I would love to see is being able to work together, collaborate on ways we can include diversity, equity, and inclusion in the summer camp programs with the kids. Whether it's, I don't know, activities, guests coming in, I don't know, professional athletes coming in to share their stories, something that's engaging for kids. And you have such a wonderful facility there. I think that would be so perfect to be able to do that. And then we could certainly let our Northborough residents know about it. And it's just another way to educate. I feel like every meeting we've had thus far, this is our 4th meeting, and we continue to come back to, it's all about education and training, right? Whether it's the police department, the fire department, our schools, us, right? Residents. I kind of feel like that's the root of the problem, is educating people. People don't realize that this problem exists. I was with very dear friends not too long ago who felt we don't really have an issue. Well, we do have an issue, but it's all about being informed. People are not informed, and I think that's our biggest problem. Right?
Yeah. I also think too that, you know, when you think of the the local branch for the Y and then the national organization for the Y, is there an opportunity? Because I think one element that is missed through education and training, well, that is very important, is the actual human element of it, is the actual meeting people and building relationships with people that just happen to be a little bit different than you. And I think that is such an enormous part of this. It's, you could do education and training, and you may be able to score well on a test, but in the real world, how vital is that? Or how, like, you'll know the stuff, but like, it doesn't, like, empathy is a huge part of this. Just being like, looking at another person, being like, it's just a guy. It's, you know, it's just another person. And I think the way that you create that is by having shared experiences with people, sitting down and eating lunch with somebody, you know, like, just simple things, but it just goes such a long way for everybody that's involved to just build that human element to it, the relationship, the connection, that part of it. And, you know, is there a way to use the Ys, not, like I said, not only their local, but their regional and then their national programs to kind of be a conduit for people to have that human connection, that human, you know, have lunch with a different Y, you know, like those sorts of things, you know, and like it wouldn't make sense for Northborough to have lunch with the people for, you know, the Y and Westboro or South, you know, like from the same background or community. It wouldn't make sense for both, you know, but if you do something where you can
I like
have,
that.
have people with different backgrounds, you know, urban Y versus meets a suburban Y, or rural Y meets a suburban Y, you know, like those, like it, and it doesn't have to be based on anything other than location. It just you might get a, you know, what we think of as a diverse group, but diversity isn't just skin color. There's a lot of, you know, I grew up in the city, you grew up in the mountains. We just have a different view on things, you know. So I think, you know, sorry, I'm rambling, but
Good.
it's just using the Y and their reach to get that human connection and that element so that people can shake hands, share a laugh.
Question
You know?
that kind of comes to mind is, how do we integrate and how do we give a voice to the people who are unheard? And sharing that experience, even giving our own experiences of stuff that we've witnessed or been a part of, and sharing those experiences. And that's where I see you're going with that, is having that human connection and sharing the experience of different backgrounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joe, does the borough Y have a relationship with other Ys like in the region? Like, I don't know if there's a Worcester YMCA, but you have a relationship with them?
So we're a part of the YMCA of Central Massachusetts, and there are 6 branches inside of that. The Central Community Branch in Worcester. There are a couple in Worcester. There's also the Greendale branch, but also like up in Leominster and Montechusett. It's pretty spread out, and so that's like our local association. We have centralized leadership, all that sort of thing. But you know, we are not immediately connected with, like, say, the Y of Greater Boston.
Okay.
But yeah, so we do have those immediate connections in the area. And
Yeah,
for
so-
what it's worth, I don't know, just thinking about, I don't know, ways to share that immediate experience of being in a fully integrated community. I don't know, it's crazy, because that's absolutely, I mean, obviously, clearly it's not a perfect system or anything like that, but one thing that's really great about the Y, if you're ever actually able to go into one, is that unlike a lot of other fitness centers and places like that, you really do get a lot of I don't know, people letting their guards down, forming those relationships. I think that one of the reasons that people feel so strongly about the Y once they join and once they've actually been in it for a little while is that they know, oh, well, I have to keep going back because this person that I went to this class with every Tuesday is going to be looking for me. The person who swims in the lane to the right of me every morning is going to be like wondering where I am, like things like that. That's absolutely the lived experience of people at the Y. And so, you know, you were saying like, oh, well, it'd be wonderful if we could get people to sit down, share a sandwich, things like that. You know, actually engage in a real way other than just like small talk and stuff like that. That is happening every day, you know, in our branch, but also in the other ones near us and across the country. I feel like it's I don't know. I guess that's more just an observation. We're definitely seeing that every single day, but at the same time, we want to be able to actually make sure that that experience is kind of spread into the community as well. And so I think that in addition to being a place to house events and speakers and things like that, we'd also like to use whatever resources we have at our disposal to kind of spread that sense of community to people who aren't necessarily members of our YMCA. Obviously, if people are gonna, you know, want to sign up, that's not like a bad thing. We're not going to fight that by any stretch. But the goal isn't to bring more members into the branch. The goal is to make sure that we have a positive impact on the community. And so if it's in branch, that's wonderful, but definitely not necessary. If we could send people out and help in other ways, by all means, we're going to do whatever we can.
All right, that's great. Anybody else have any other questions?
Joe, what would you need from us to be able to push out that survey either through your newsletter or through social media, just so that we know what we would need to do if we want to do that?
I mean, that's a very good question. You guys are using SurveyMonkey, right?
We are.
I don't think it'd be any more complicated than sharing a link to the actual survey itself, would it?
Sure.
No.
Would you want us to write something around it, or would your team write something?
Oh, I mean, by all means, if you guys have particular things that you would want us to include with that as an introduction or anything like that, absolutely. But I'm more than happy to write something up. That's not a problem. So whichever works best for you.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Joe.
Did you have any questions for us, Joe? Was there anything that we could answer for you?
I mean, generally speaking, kind of like a how can we help sort of, feeler, but no particular questions. I think I have a pretty good idea of your goals, short and long term, just because I like I said, I watched a couple of those meetings from before, and so I'm at least pretty versed in what's going on here. But yeah, like I said, we want to do whatever we can. So it's more, I guess, an extension of like an offering of friendship or whatever. Like we want to partner with you guys. We want to do whatever we can. And so maybe let's just kind of make stuff happen if possible sooner than later.
All right, that sounds good. Becca, I think you and I should probably have just a follow-up with Joe, just to send him and some next steps that we can take.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely we'll get you the link to the survey, Joe. And we'll craft some language around, so you don't, you can just push it out. And then, I would like to just stay in touch, get your contact information. And as we think of things, I know that like community building was one of the things we wanted to focus on, and getting in touch with community members and making those connections. So, if anything, it's just, keep in touch, and we'll do the same. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I have the forwarded chain that you guys had with Slater. And so I believe I have both you, Becca, and Tim's contact information. And so I can maybe afterwards just kind of reach out to you guys individually so that we can keep the ball rolling there.
Great.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, again, thank you, Joe. Thank you very much for taking the time. It's very much appreciated. And that was a lot of really helpful, really useful information. And I think that, there's a real positive, potential for us working together in the future, both to meet the goals that I think we all share in common.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks again for letting me come and chat with you guys. We were so excited to see that you guys were willing to take this time. And once I was able to go through and do a little bit of research on everything that you guys were hoping to do, it just made us more excited than ever. So very much looking forward to the future there.
Perfect. That sounds great. Well, thank you very much. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your night, guys.
All right,
Thank
perfect.
you.
Thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, well, that went great.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's great that there was things that I wasn't even thinking of that he brought up, which was nice to hear, just having access to the facility, and that would be huge. That would be great. Next on the agenda for tonight was to just discuss the survey and where we're at. I checked before we came online and we had 421 engagements with the survey with a 79% completion rate. So that puts
Great.
us at about 325, give or take,
Awesome.
of completed surveys, which is great, which is exceeded my expectations for the first week and a half. So we have another, we talked about keeping it open for till March 11th. So we'll keep it open till then and see where things stand at that point. Obviously, if the Y is going to share it and if we need to keep it open longer, we'll just keep it open longer as the responses keep coming in. One of the things that I don't know if we discussed at the meeting or Becca and I had a conversation offline about was the more responses that we get, the better it is for the accuracy of the information. So, like you see in political campaigns and political surveys, the margin of error, the more responses that we get, the smaller that margin of error gets. So at 325, I think we're around like 6 to 7% margin of error, which is pretty big. But for what we're trying to do, it's actually really good. But if we can get up over 500, that shrinks down quite a bit. So again, it's not only do we want more people to engage with the survey because we want to hear from people and get their thoughts on what's going on in town. The number of responses also helps with strengthening the data that comes out of the survey. So, if we can pump that survey out through the Y and their distribution channels, I would hope that would garner us another 100, 150 responses, which would be tremendous. So, did anybody have any questions about the survey, where it's at? Any detailed questions or just general questions?
Have you dipped into them at all to see what the results look like? Just like a general idea?
Yeah, I haven't. So I haven't looked at the agree, disagree distributions in the questions because they can change pretty dramatically from day to day. Now that we've got more, they're getting kind of set. But I've been reading through the comments that people are making, and one thing I didn't think of when we made the comments available is that people would be able to make comments about anything they wanted to. And so some of the comments haven't been nice. So I've actually taken some of those out because there's no need to have those sorts of responses in our data set. But the ones where people take the time to make comments, it's really helpful to hear what people are thinking in another level of detail. And then some of the other comments too will help us make improvements if we were to do another survey in 6 to 12 months on how to better refine some of the answers so that people have the option for I don't know. When we were talking through the disability question, like I don't know should have been an answer, and that would have solved a lot of problems. And it just didn't occur to us to include that. So that sort of information has been helpful. So once we get through, as we get more responses, we'll be able to see like an average number of stars for responses. So all of our questions are based on like 5 stars from the agree to disagree, and so we'll get a average star rating of like 3.4, and that will be kind of like the average answer for each question. And I think that's where we'll really be able to start finding some interesting information. And the other good thing too is a lot of people have been answering the demographic information. So that's going to be really helpful too. So a very good start.
Tim, do we want to talk about extending the timeline, given that we're planning to reach out to the Y? I mean, I know that we had talked about a week from today, but if the group, if we want more than a week for the Y, I mean, we didn't ask Joe how much time he would need to get it out, and I don't want to, shortchange their ability to get the survey to their, the population that they serve. So it's just a thought.
Yeah, there's no hard stop date on it, I guess. Like we talked about ending it on the 11th, but when we had that discussion, it was more dependent on the pace on which we were getting responses. Because if you look through how the responses have come in, they've really started to tail off the last day or two, which is expected. The longer it's out there, the less you're going to get. But if we're going to get another bump because of the Y, we'll just extend it for another week and let it run.
Okay. I just didn't want to prematurely close it, before the committee had a chance to meet again, if we wanted to keep it open. So, but if people are comfortable just sort of playing it by ear and seeing how the Y impacts the responses, we can do that too.
Would it make sense to send one more email out to residents? I know for me personally, I get so many emails that if I wasn't on this committee, I may have overlooked it. Would the town consider sending the email out again, or do you think that's not worthwhile?
I was thinking about putting it on the Facebook page again, on the clerk's page, and then asking the departments to share it. I don't know if you think that would be more. I mean, the good thing about Facebook is that people are more likely to share something on Facebook than they are to forward an email. So I don't know if we think that might be a better process, but
I think either way, I think one more shot out just for anybody who missed it the first time around would be great.
Yep, I can make a note to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and regarding keeping it open, we obviously have flexibility, but I would base it off of when the next newsletter is going out for the Y, because that would have been a good question to ask actually, and what their lead time is to get that in place, because I don't know if they do it on a regular cycle, if it's monthly and we missed it for March or may miss it for March. So we can kind of figure that out with them, and maybe we just utilize social with them, which is also fine. And then we can determine how long we want to leave it open after they do their push out. And maybe we could just coordinate through email or something. But it's usually about a week or so, right? That you would expect to see some sort of a bump after it gets pushed out. Mm-hmm. So we can make that determination based on either the time that the newsletter goes out or when they plan to make their social media post for us.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just to add to that, we're not on a timeline on the other end. Like we're not looking to get the data, get it analyzed, get a report put together by the end of April. Like we have a pretty flexible deadline on ourselves on the back end. So, like to your point, Chika, if we miss the March newsletter and we can't get into April and we need to keep the survey open through April 15th, we can do that. We don't have a deadline on the other end.
Yeah, that's fair.
Is it possible, I haven't, do you want us to complete the survey, Tim? Us on the committee?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So I haven't done it, but I will. Does it discover if someone puts in a bad email? Like, do you have an email field? How do you know if someone goes to do it twice? Was there a method to prevent that from occurring?
Generally, you can't do it twice from the same IP address.
The same IP, okay.
So it does record the IP address, and then if you try to record it from the same IP address twice, it
Okay.
could not let you record it twice.
Thanks for asking that, Mary. I also did not take the survey because I didn't know if we should, but I'm happy to take it. I will do that today.
I did take it only because I haven't been to the meetings, and it doesn't allow you to take it twice. It does say you've already taken the survey twice, so or you've already taken it, you can't take it a second time.
Yeah, okay. What did you think of the survey, Hamilton, since you weren't available for when we were discussing it?
I think it was good. Not being here and kind of like dreading looking at it because you just never know how they're gonna go. But taking it and going through it, it actually made some sense, and it was something I felt comfortable answering all the questions as well.
Okay, good. Okay. Sorry, just looking at the agenda. Any other questions or comments on the survey? Okay, good. But my last comment on the survey is just thank you everybody for helping out putting that together. Actually, I think part of the reason why people are engaging is because it makes sense. So thank you to everybody for their input and their collaboration on that. So thanks everybody. Next. So we need to finalize the medium and long-term objectives for the committee and assign members to do some research into each objective and just kind of take ownership of it so that they can report back and just have progress reports during our upcoming meetings. With the objective being that when we do have to make the presentation to the Board of Selectmen, that the objective that you've been working on is ready to present and can be implemented. I just want to check one thing. I'm scrolling through 369 pages of sorry. Oh, okay. I thought they were in there. Guess not. So when we think about the long and medium term objectives that we as a committee want to recommend to the town, obviously education and training is a very important part of that. And we talked about external and internal trainings. Internal meaning for employees and staff and people that work for the town, and then external being programs that sounds like we could utilize the Y to hold some of those events, to partner with the Y. I think that's, I think once everybody steps away and lets their creative juices get going, I'm sure we can come up with some pretty great ideas to utilize the Y and some of the resources they have available. And I think I think when I think about that, those are two separate objectives, the internal and the external. Does that feel right to other people?
Yeah. I know I keep going back to this and you can shut me down, but I'm still struggling to understand what we're doing with the schools. I understand there's a committee, but I don't see any information coming out of that committee in terms of what they've accomplished, what their goals are to reach out to like the K through 12 community, which in my opinion is a huge number of people that we can impact. And like I said a while back, I mean, kids start developing an opinion of others at the age of 3. And I think, you know, if we can get into the schools, then maybe it's not our role. But I personally would like to better understand what are the Northborough schools doing to embrace diversity, inclusion, and equity. I don't see it. I haven't heard about it. We've asked the question, and I'm struggling to understand the agenda.
I think you may have just nominated our next guest that we could invite potentially, because I don't know the answer either. I don't know if anyone here does, but that would be an awesome discussion, I would think, at this point. But I know that they do have the committee. We've talked about that a lot. And the challenge, I guess, was we didn't want to duplicate their efforts or whatever they may have been working on, but to have no visibility to what that is, it makes it harder, I'm sure, for us to kind of step away from that, because we just don't know what's happening there or what opportunities may be to enhance what they're doing too. So I think it's a great point, Mary. I don't know who we might be able to get, but maybe there's someone that either Tim or Becca know that we might be able to invite, and maybe they'd be open to joining us.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mary, as well. I'm super curious what's going on in that committee because, I mean, I haven't heard anything. I'm not saying like I just personally, I'm not sure about what's going on in their committee. Yeah, that would be a great guest at our meeting to learn.
So who would that be? Or perhaps maybe Lauren and Deirdre can help us find the right person.
That too.
And
Yeah, I think Lauren had previously expressed a willingness to possibly reach out to them, to that group, because she is a member of the school committee. So I think she might have that connection. So I can offline after the meeting, I can follow up with Lauren and see if she can maybe make that connection and we can get something on the schedule. Absolutely.
okay.
That'd be great. Thank you, Becca.
Yeah.
And Mary, just so I'm not, so I understand what your question is. It's not, are you asking what this committee can do to impact the schools, or was your question what the school diversity and inclusion committee is doing for the schools and we're just not hearing from them?
Both. So I feel that part of our responsibility is to address the entire population of Northborough. And early on, we were told, I think I understood that K through 12 was all set and the schools were handling diversity and inclusion within the school, so we wouldn't have to worry about that. But we're now into March and I still haven't heard or seen anything. I know that there was a survey done, but we haven't seen or heard about any results. And that's fine. It might be premature to see any results, but for me, I don't feel like we would have done we wouldn't have fulfilled our responsibilities if we left out the schools, just assuming that it's being taken care of. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. And if you don't feel, Tim, that it's part of if we don't have the bandwidth to embrace that, that's fine. But I just feel like it's a big piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that the school systems and kids, it's a really, really important part of the community and the work that needs to be done. It does need to include education and in school age kids, the one thing that we need to be aware of is the scope that we have with this committee,
Right.
because we need to report to the Board of Selectmen, and then the Board of Selectmen will then vote, or make the decision on whether to move forward with things or not to move forward with things, depending on, all the different variables. And one area that the Board of Selectmen doesn't have any oversight or authority over is the schools and the school committee. So
Okay.
if we make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, nobody's going to be able to do anything because they don't
All
have.
right. Well, that's key. That's important. Okay. Okay. I
But
understand.
I do agree with you. Like if we having people come in from the school committee so that we can work with them. And if there's collaboration, if there's joint activities that we can do, if there's things that we can do from our committee through the Board of Selectmen to help the schools, then that's a conversation that I think is worth having. But just so you understand, or that we all understand, it's local government. There's lanes that everybody has to stay in, and our lane just doesn't include
Schools.
schools or direct.
Good information. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay. So yeah, so bringing somebody in from the schools. And then external, internal. Did anybody else have thoughts or ideas on long or medium-term objectives that we should pursue to present to the Board of Selectmen we make our report?
Not yet.
Tim, what do you have on the list now?
Yeah.
What are some of the, I know we've talked, because we've talked about so many things. So like training, recruitment, we've talked about those things, especially, the police department, because we've talked to the chief. I know we've talked about like community policies that the board oversees, like the flags. And I thought of rainbow crosswalks to, try to convince the DPW director to paint the streets this summer. But so what other sorts of, I think those are some big ones. Are there other things that people have sort of thought about or that have come up that we think we should try to focus on or at least do a little bit of research on, sort of like best practices from other communities that are doing it?
I think that's an important part. I'm sorry, Hamilton, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just one thing that I always kind of come to mind when it comes to diversity and inclusion is housing, whether it be in the low-income housing side of it. I think that's a huge piece that maybe we can kind of see how we could bring a recommendation to selectmen to say, let's increase the level of a percentage that we need to have in Northborough when a complex is built or some sort. But that's as far as I've thought of it. I don't know if there's a different way of doing it, but housing always seems to be the first thing that comes to mind to me when we talk about diversity and inclusion.
Okay. I think, Becca, I think we need to think through that because I'm not sure, again, if that's in the board's
scope.
Yeah. Housing is tough because there's a lot of different entities that have their hands in the housing pot, so to speak. We have the Housing Authority, which is it's a federally managed agency. It has nothing to do with Northborough the municipality itself. We have an existing relationship with them just through the community because they're in the community, but we don't, the Board of Selectmen doesn't have any oversight over the Housing Authority, but there are other, like there's a subsidized housing index that our planning and development department is responsible for maintaining and updating. And there's a lot of, I don't want to get too deep into it, but there's 40B housing, which is subsidized housing, and there's all these thresholds for if you have a certain number of 40B units, then your planning process plays out differently than if you don't. So it gets it can get really muddy really quick. If you, Hamilton, were interested in housing specifically and wanted to do some like background and dig into it a little more, like I'd be happy to have those conversations with you offline. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds because it's just a lot for us to cover, but I do think that there's possibly a window if that was something you wanted to focus on specifically.
Absolutely. Thank you.
The other element that I wanted to bring up, and we tried to get to this level of granularity when we were talking with the chief, but it sounded like there was going to be a longer lead time, potentially 6 months or so. But I don't know if there are policies that our team can be reviewing that the town kind of abides by at this point to really determine like systematically if there's opportunity for us to make change. And I just don't know if like maybe it's already on the site or on the Northborough website, which is fine. But I'm trying to think if that's how we can start to spark some new ideas of ways that we can really address potential challenges that may just be so built into the way we operate day in and day out.
Yeah.
That was in the some of the town information that Becca sent out. There was some pretty interesting stuff within those PDFs about different, not policy changes, but kind of policy changes, just adding definitions of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's pretty interesting. And that could be something that we could recommend to the police department, the fire department, the town administration to put in their human resources policies and procedures manual, just an updated version that better embraces this whole concept.
Mm-hmm.
There was some pretty good information in what you had sent out, Becca.
Yeah, Shika, to your point,
Yep.
I think you're talking about like a policy manual or like personnel handbook, that kind of thing.
Yes, anything like that.
Yeah, so we have that stuff. And the police department has their own, the fire department has their own, and then the town proper has, we call it a personnel code.
Sure.
So, I think step one would sort of be like figuring out where we are now. And then the next step would be, and where do we want to be? So
Exactly.
I think like if there's a group of people who wanted to work on where are we now, and that I could distribute those resources that exist today. And then we could start to go through them and look at what the best practices are and sort of figure out where the dots aren't connecting. The thing I'm struggling with is I don't want us to bite off more than we can chew. That's my fear. And I know that down the road, we've talked about a DEI plan. And that would mean bringing in a consultant that would do that work for us, that we would work with, who would have a lot of experience in the field and who had done this a lot of times before. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, how do we want to manage that balance as a committee? I think that's,
Yeah. No, I totally hear you. I guess my initial thought was, is there anything that we're going to read in any of these? If we want to just look at the one for the town as a whole, maybe that's a good place to start, and see if there's anything that jumps out that's like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that was a policy that we were all following, or something that the team or, our administration was referring to and actually making decisions based off of, that we may be able to recommend making shifts or changes, rather than, because I feel like right now we're trying to all come up with ideas, which is totally fine, but there might be something right in our face that we just hadn't had a chance to review that documentation to determine if it's an opportunity for us or not. That's all. So maybe start with one of those very large documents and see if one of them has something we can kind of jump on and include within our list to the Board of Selectmen.
So
I don't know how you all feel about that.
Tim, do you think it makes more sense to sort of split people up and have just a like a portion of the committee focus on that? And then, because how
Well,
did you-
as everybody's been sharing ideas, what I was thinking is back to when we had Chief Liver
Mhm.
come in, and through the conversations that we had with Chief Liver, there were things in the policies at the police department that he shared that seemed like they would be good places to start for change. And one of the things that came up was the policy on tattoos.
Mhm.
And that seems like it's a fairly straightforward change to make. Tattoos are much more prevalent today than they were 20 years ago. I would think, there would be more to talk through with those, but that's just something. And there was a few other things that he brought up during the conversations that we had with the chief. And then on April 1st, we're meeting with Chief Parenti from the fire department. So we'll have the same sort of conversation with him. So I think when we have conversations with department leaders and leaders in the community, if we do a good job like we did with Chief Liver and just let them share their views on things and just ask the right questions, they probably will have be open to say, like, these are the things that I would like to see changed. And that will save us from having to read policy manuals, which I don't think anybody wants to, spend hours and hours doing that. And to be honest with you, I'm hesitant to get into the policy of human resources, because there's unions, there's a lot of, it's not like it's a private company where you can just review it and change it. There's Becky, you know better than I would, but the labor agreements, the contract agreements, and everything that's in these is negotiated. And I just don't, even if we read through it and find something that is obviously needs to be changed, I don't know how easy it is to change because of the nature of the unions and the types of employment that people have with the town. But I do think when we bring in leaders, when they share their ideas, that will give us things that we can then look into, say, how do we change those things? Does that make sense?
Yeah, Tim, you raise a really good point. And I wonder, should we have a set of questions that we're asking everyone? I think, when we were with Chief Liver, I think we had some really great questions, but they were just sort of things we thought of on the fly. But maybe we should be asking everybody sort of the same set of questions, or, obviously additional questions might come up, but at least we have like a core set. Maybe those can start from the transcripts from those previous meetings, as like, these questions really got us a lot of information. So let's ask those for everyone. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, I think that would be tremendously helpful. I think to having a template for questions would be enormously helpful.
It's an excellent idea.
Now that you're talking through it, it would be, if we had those questions, it would be great if we could send the chief, like Chief Parenti, here are some questions that we're thinking of that we're going to ask when you come in. If you want to think through them, if you want to prepare, if you have questions that you want to ask us, and it would just help them to understand. And I think it would go a long way to alleviate some concerns that people have when they're coming and speaking in front of
Right.
the
'Cause
Diversity
they'll
and
know what
Inclusion
to
Committee.
expect.
Yeah.
They might even bring data or, more information to support what they're saying.
Yes. Yeah, I think that would be great. Do you want to,
I was going to say, I'm happy to take a look back through the transcripts and pull out, because I think I want to go back through today's as well, since I wasn't here earlier. So it'd be easier for me to go back through all of the other meetings.
Okay.
And then I can send that around and you can add. What'd you say?
It'll be a while before I have those minutes ready.
Oh, okay. Well, Well, the video should be available, right?
You
Yeah.
can watch the video on YouTube.
Yeah, that would be great. Because the other piece to that too that I was thinking is it's not only the department heads in town, it's also bringing in and having conversations with other committees in town. Because I think that those conversations will be very helpful and give us some direction for recommendations that we can make to help improve some of the activities and events and holiday celebrations and decorations that go up around town. And the other community events that happen over the course of the year to make those more diverse. So I think those will lead to some other ideas. I did talk with or I got an email from Virginia, and she would like to take on one aspect of the training and do some research on that. So does anybody else have any interest in? I'm happy, like I'm happy to take on one aspect of that. Is there anybody else that has any interest in looking into and researching training options? And Becca, I think the consultant would probably be outside of that. I think the consultant would be its own separate recommendation.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit when we get to that, but the consultant will be its own thing. That will be a recommendation. And it will
Right.
be, for us, I think one of the arguments of continuing the D&I committee will be, like, you need to keep this committee intact because we're recommending that you pursue this consultant, and we want to be the ones to drive that process. It makes the most sense because we've done all this work to date. But no, I think you're right. And I just want to go back really quick to touch on the unions, because that's a really good point to make. Managing in a unionized environment is a totally different animal. Every change that we are recommending has to be considered by any union that it will impact. And then any change to the code has to go before town meeting. So it's not, after the recommendation is made, lots of other steps have to happen before it can be implemented. So I just want to keep that in mind, is that, like, this is just the very, very beginning of this process. It takes a long time to get to the end. But that, Tim, it's a good point, and it's a good thing for us to keep in the back of our minds, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to add to that, I do, and we've had this discussion earlier, that I do believe that the recommendations that we make, they need to be not necessarily easy wins, but very winnable recommendations. I think if we make recommendations that are huge undertakings, it's just going to lose steam. But I think if we make recommendations that are impactful and relatively simple to implement, it will go a long way to when we do need to make bigger changes that will take more effort. It will be easier to get people on board, and they'll be more patient because they know that we've been successful in the past.
Agreed.
Can you say a little bit more about the training? Is that what kind of training?
Well, anybody else feel free to jump in. I think it's when we talk about internal training, it's really like the town staff and the town departments, hiring practices, recruiting practices. Do town employees need to take any sort of unconscious bias training, like those, like really So they're more,
Okay, no, got it. I just really wanted to know, we weren't talking about police officer training, which is something that came up in a
Right.
previous, okay.
right, exact, yeah, yeah. And then have an external training, which is more like speaker series and like, I'm thinking like at the library, like we do book series, like these are the
Got
books
it, yeah.
recommended by the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and they're on a display in front of, like, those are like external, and by external, I just mean outside of the employment of the town.
Got it. Oh, that's great. I'd be interested in working on that too.
Okay, is there a particular external or internal that you,
So I've already been doing some work for a separate reason with like books and things like that. So I can hit the ground running in that area. And then I also do some like unconscious bias type of training. So I have a little bit of familiarity with that.
okay. Yeah, if you want to take that on, that would be great.
Okay.
I think really what we're looking for, Deirdre, is like trying to figure out what the best practices are, like
Good,
what
I got
are
it.
other, other municipalities who are, maybe bigger cities, like the city of Boston has this incredibly robust training program that they put all of their employees through. It's all online. There's a diversity module. There's an ADA accessibility module. So just trying to figure out like, how can we incorporate some of that stuff locally for our employees? And what does it look like to be doing it successfully, I guess. That's the idea.
Great. No, that's great. I was laughing because I was cautioning myself to like not speak up, because the last 2 times I said something, I got some tasks, but that is perfectly fine. That's what we're here for. I'm going to keep talking.
If it's and don't feel pressured, I guess. Like it's we've all got lives outside of this committee, so I know that everybody's got other pressing priorities. So it's and if you say no, we'll probably remove you from the committee. But that's nothing.
I know. Stakes are high.
Because I can look into, I do a lot of work with internal training, so I can look into that and get some resources on that, and then I have some ideas on some external programs that we can put into place, and I'll just put a list together for those, like the library reading series, those sorts of things. And then I think if everybody can think through, again, if we are going to have a partnership with the Y, how do we extract the most value from that partnership that we possibly can? So, all right. I think that's good. You okay, Becca? You look confused.
Me? No, I'm thinking, sorry.
Okay.
Accessibility is another thing that I do want to get into. ADA accessibility is it's a huge piece of this. Well, at least like from the municipal perspective. So a lot of, there are a lot of legal and ethical reasons for us to think about accessibility. And there's a lot of grant opportunities from the state to pursue around accessibility. So I'll just say I'm going to take that on because I already have a little bit of background knowledge on it, and I'll bring the ideas to the committee. But there's a self-evaluation and transition plan that municipalities are supposed to go through, and it's basically you bring in a consultant and they tell you every physical barrier that exists on your town-owned properties, what you need to do to bring it up to code, and how much money it'll cost. And that's the first step in figuring out where are we today and how do we get to where we need to be. So that right off the bat, I think is going to be a recommendation we need to think about making. But I'll bring more information about that to the next meeting, and we can flush out some of those details together.
Okay, that would be great. All right. So next on the agenda, DEI plan, and review and discuss other communities' plans. Becca, you did a amazing job getting all this information together. Do you want to talk through what you had found?
Yeah, so I just wanted to provide these to you guys so you guys have an idea of sort of like what the range of options is out there. And I don't expect anybody to have reviewed all of them because I recognize it's like 350 pages and 2 days is certainly not enough to get through all that. So, but I hope that you guys keep them as a resource and look through them when you have time. And the point that I want to make is that DEI plans are intended to be tailored to a community's need. So like my thought was, you know, we're going to talk to all these people, we're going to conduct the surveys, and hopefully from that, we will figure out where are the places where we should be most focused. And then from there, we can start to draft a scope of work that focuses on those areas. And the scope of work will inform the work that the consultant does. And that will be ultimately the recommendation that's made to the board is here's a general idea of a scope of work. This is sort of what a plan looks like and how it informs the town moving forward. This is what we think it'll cost based on what other communities have done similarly. And we want you to allow us to move forward and work with the consultant to have this completed strategic plan. So that was sort of just the point I wanted to make. And that if we can start thinking about sort of through these conversations that we're having and the results of the survey, sort of what are the things that we would want a consultant to focus on for us. And that way we can start to think about a scope of work, because there can be as little as just do an audit of our policies and procedures and tell us where we're wrong. Like that could just be the start, all the way up to, we want you to look at everything, like from policies and procedures to training to recruitment to, you can keep going to ADA accessibility to, and those are the larger ones. They tend to cost a lot more money. They tend to take a lot more time, but I just want us to start thinking about what we think that process should look like as a group and what we would recommend to the board. And so I just wanted to provide these as resources.
So Becca, if you need any help with reviewing those and kind of capturing some kind of consistent messages that we're seeing with other communities that's worked well with them, I'm happy to help you with that.
Yeah, that would be great, Mary. We can connect offline maybe. And like if you want to go through them, and then we can talk about sort of where we think some of the more successful pieces are and the things that we might like to focus on, because it's not all going to be applicable to Northborough. So,
yep.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Thank you, Becca. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. So next, setting dates for future meetings and frequency for meetings. We've had a lot of conversations over our first handful of meetings on the day and how often we're going to meet. Hamilton was having conflicts with his schedule. Everybody's going to have conflicts over the course of time, which is fine. I just want to make sure that the day and time works for everybody most of the time. So Hamilton, you had said that your schedule has changed a bit, and Thursdays
will now work. Yeah. So okay. I'm good on Thursdays for now. Yeah. If we want to keep it there, then I'm good with keeping it easy and keeping it on Thursday.
Okay. Is everybody okay with Thursdays? Okay. And then the next piece was the frequency of meetings. And one thought that I had was having meetings every 2 weeks instead of once a month. And what we can do format wise is one meeting per month is we have a guest in, because those usually take about half an hour to an hour, depending on the scope of the level of detail that we get in with the person. And then if we have a follow-up conversation after that conversation, that would be one meeting per month. And then the second meeting of the month would be more for discussions like we're having now, following up on progress on objectives. And once we get into writing the report that we're going to present, there's going to be a lot of work that goes into that and conversations around that. So splitting the two and having one meeting for guests and one meeting for committee work just made a lot of sense to me. And just wanted to get everybody's feedback on that idea, or if you had other ideas for frequency and format moving forward.
Becca, you're going to have to help me with the minutes if we do them every other week.
Yeah, we'll have to trade off. I'm okay meeting twice a month. I think when I start to think about all the people we want to invite in and all the stuff we want to do, I think realistically, we do need to meet twice a month. So that's just my opinion.
That sounds good to me.
I agree. Sounds good.
I agree.
Makes sense.
I think it'll feel good too. It'll feel like we're having a momentum going.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I agree. That's a great point. I agree with like we've had 3 meetings over the last 6 weeks, and I can feel the difference. You know, it's nice to be able to meet every couple of weeks, and it's the information seems a lot fresher. All right, so Becca, do we need to have an official vote on that, or is that just we just
No, not at
Okay.
all. I mean, in terms of, so right now we meet on the first Thursday of the month. That's our current meeting schedule. And then last month in February, we ended up meeting on the third Thursday of the month. So basically every other Thursday. Is that a schedule that schedule works with like licensing and for planning purposes? I think we would be good with that. Is that something that the group is good with if we were to sort of tentatively pick the first and third Thursdays of the month?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay.
That works.
That's fine with me.
Sounds good, Becca. Good plan.
Agree.
That works.
All right, so we will, so we'll plan to do that. I'll send a note out to the group so that, Lauren and Virginia, I think they were both okay with the Thursdays, so, we'll let them know and we'll, Tim, we'll just have to work on agendas.
Yeah,
Okay, great. Sounds good.
all right. Was there anything else that anybody wanted to discuss tonight? No? All right, sounds good. Yeah, I think we're making progress. I'm psyched about the survey.
Same. I was not expecting that response rate, but that's so awesome. Can't wait to
Yeah.
see the results. Yeah. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
We'll share that with the Y, and hopefully that will boost things even more, which will be great.
Yeah.
And it'll be a great foundation for a lot of the recommendations. I really believe that. So I think it's going to work out well. All right. A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. We are adjourned.
Roll call.
Roll call. Sorry. That's the one aspect I forget every time. You would think after doing this, however many times I would have I think I might need not a template for the questions. I might need a template for myself for. Yeah, so roll call. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Chica,
Aye.
Becca,
Aye.
Miriam,
Aye.
and Deidre.
Aye.
And I am an aye. We are.
Thanks,